Okay, hello. Welcome back to episode 4 of season 4, the After Show. Today I have Annika, Joseph, and Iman. So Joseph was on production that season, and obviously Annika and Iman are two of the snakiest of the snakes. So please, if you guys want to introduce yourselves and talk about where you have been since the start of the season or the season filmed. Joseph, you can go first.
Um, I graduated class of 2024, so this past year. And actually, right after graduation, I got the opportunity to work on Big Brother, the show, doing the competition. So that was super awesome to kind of apply some of my Survivor UCLA knowledge to some of the real world. And then after that, I've just been kind of dabbling around in some other production things. Right now, I'm working at a nonprofit.
Awesome. Annika?
Yeah, so like Joseph, I graduated in June and I have been working for a public relations agency based in Los Angeles. We specialize in interior design and I've been working there since August. And I am actually going to the same law school as Cameron, um, starting this coming August. So I'll be going to UCSF Law. I guess still waiting to hear back from a few places, so it's not totally concrete, but that's where I've committed as of right now.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Iman, what about you?
Hi. Um, yeah, so again, class of 2024. Since graduating, I've actually been working in theater. So doing the theater gave eventually came out. So I've been working in that. And then on the side, I've also been doing like freelance production assistant work, freelance styling work. Yeah, so that.
Awesome. I mean, you could definitely argue that this last tribal council was a little bit of a performance, if you would, but we can jump into that soon. But yeah, let's get into the episode. I want to talk about this swap, this twist, because I low-key cooked with this one. Like, I remember writing it, and like the way that it played out, like, is crazy. I think it's so interesting, like, and really plays into like the moral dilemma dynamic. Like, who on the doves are perceived to be snaky, who on the snakes are perceived to be dovey. And I think that like is really interesting. Kelsey has an interesting comment where she's like, well, we're perceived to be the snakiest out of the doves, but still not out of the whole cast, right? But how did you guys feel about being perceived as some of the snakiest snakes?
I don't know if you want to go first.
Well, personally, I was flabbergasted, as Hannah would say in the episode. For whatever, I was like at the time very unaware of my lukewarm position on the original Snake Tribe. It's so funny watching those confessionals back because I was really bigging myself up about thinking I was like really in control of everything that was going on. And honestly, like even the edit kind of made it seem like that just with the beginning of this episode and sort of like I feel like that confessional I had just kind of took credit for Cameron vote, which I think it was clear that that wasn't me who did that, but in my head, I was really thinking, and I think a lot of us I think Iman felt the same way about the Cameron vote. Like it's
I
really
did
funny.
that.
I
I
did.
was
Did
just like
that.
thinking that I was thinking I had it in the bag. I was like, I'm aligned with everybody. And like, man, Lucas didn't trust me for shit. Like, nobody trusted me at all. Like, and it's really funny watching that back and being so deluded about my position on the original tribe.
Yeah, Iman, what about you?
Yeah, the so far in this point has been a very interesting experience for me rewatching because I kind of realized that a lot of my social game was through phone conversations. And I don't think, because at the time I was having really bad roommate issues. And so I was actually commuting from home unexpectedly right in that part. So I wasn't really filming as much as other people. I guess I do want to kind of touch on some things from the prior episodes. One, the Cameron vote. I always say knew that I didn't really do the vote at the time. I just really wanted to rub it in because he was really pissing me off in the game at the time. And that was definitely like just a kind of a petty thing I wanted to do. I'm not gonna lie. But with the swap, it was actually really interesting because the episode didn't really show this, but we had to kind of do like this voting system. And during the week prior, me and Annika were actually calling a lot more. And in that week, we were actually starting to develop like a friendship. That's why the conversation with Nia, I kind of was like, it was right before that period happened where I was like, I think one good combo with her. So when I was doing the voting, I deliberately put Nia and Annika dead last because I knew I was going to be voted the snakiest. I kind of just had the I didn't want them jumping over to the Dubs. So I wanted it to I really wanted to lock that in because at the time the three of us were actually becoming really close friends. And so that is kind of what carries on. That really intense feeling is what kind of catapulted into the end of the episode.
Yeah, I mean, you all hold pretty strong there, certainly. So I think it's definitely evident that relationships were building there. What about you, Joseph? Did any of those swaps like surprise you, or did it kind of go the way that you feel like you expected it to?
I honestly think it went exactly the way that it should have gone. I mean, Iman obviously being the snaky snake hiding his idol. I think from Annika's confessionals last episode, it was giving me like Natalie Bolton, Survivor Micronesia, just like so casually nonchalant, like, yeah, Kelsey's going home. And I just loved like the villainy of it all. And then Nia, of course, was in, I thought, arguably the best position on the Snake Tribe, connected to everyone and kind of making everyone feel like they were number one. I was like, those are definitely the snakiest snakes. And then on the Dove Tribe, we had Kelsey, Dunker, and Jude, who were kind of some of the big players. Maybe Elena could have been on the Snake Tribe because of the whole idol thing, but I don't think people really found out that she was being a little snaky there yet. So I think in terms of production wise, I think it went exactly how I was expecting it to go.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think anyone perceived Elena to be sneaky at all, when I think we kind of talked in the one or two episodes ago that she was definitely like pretty central socially, though there was this alliance that was kind of forming without her. And interestingly, three of the people who were in that little Dove alliance did end up being the ones to move over to the Snakes. So maybe it really worked out for Kelsey, actually, that she was able to set herself up in that way. But yeah, I want to talk about like the relationship building that happens over the course of this week. The challenge, like, we can talk about a little bit. Like, it was a close race, but I don't think there's a ton to get into there. I think, like, yeah, it was just really interesting to see the way the dynamics built. Like, there was this girls alliance thing happening. Iman, you were connecting with Dunker. Annika, you also really started to build this connection with Jude, and you were like really trying to pull on that during the insanity of tribal also. But yeah, I want to hear more about like the relationships that you felt were formulating and how we got to this point of deadlock despite kind of liking everybody.
I kind of just remember the second the challenge was over, it was just me, Nia, and Annika just going, we're fucked. Like, we're fucked. And that is instantly what made us click. Like we just stuck together. And in that week, we all had coordinated our communications together as one unit. For me personally, with Dunker, I don't remember with Jude. I don't really remember having that much conversation with him. I think that was my most like dead end one. But with Dunker, he's half Persian. I'm full Persian. I was trying to see if I could like just leverage that. I was like, honestly, like we're both Persian. Like I kind of don't want to vote you off, to be totally honest with you. And I was trying to get that to stick, but with Dunker, like it just didn't really go anywhere. So a big thing was just I had to kind of sit back and let Annika and Nia try to work Kelsey with the whole girls thing. So I was receiving all that information from them. And then I kind of felt like the votes are probably gonna go on me. So I felt like I didn't have to do that much in that part of the week.
If you felt like the votes were going on you, why didn't you play your idol?
Because I kind of felt like it was gonna well actually I knew that if they were gonna vote someone, it would probably be me, but I kind of just felt that they weren't gonna flip. I don't know. I did not have the feeling to play my idol back then. It was, I mean, guys, this was 2 years ago.
if like I'm curious, knowing now, obviously, regardless of the rest of the game, right? Knowing now that Nia was the one who went home, do you at all wish that you had played your idol and sent Kelsey out?
No. I just think everything happens for a reason. But the crazy thing that's not in this episode is that I told Nia I had the idol before this vote. We were walking back together and I just told her. And so during the part where I was regretting it was during the revote, because once it's kind of hard. The camera can really, they can't capture this that well. But when Nia came back, she was not looking at me. She kept turning away, and I was like, fuck, like she just like, I'm out, like at this point. And so then her getting rocked out, that was even more emotional for me because I felt this immense guilt, but that did completely change my view of the game and how I wanted to kind of take things like further.
And then Annika, relationship wise, you have this like good segment with Jude, you have this good segment with Kelsey. Like I kind of really, I mean, and then you have this joke about like talking to Dunker for 12 minutes, right? I think really you were socially central there, like a huge step up from your position on the last tribe. And we see, I think Nia's still definitely in there, but I think definitely you're at the center of this tribe socially. But yeah, I'm really curious about why you, and you talk about it in the episode, but why you really wanted to go towards Kelsey.
So what had happened was the first person I had a conversation with was Kelsey. The second person I had a conversation with was Jude. And actually, maybe, you know what? It was Kelsey, Dunker on the phone, and then Jude third. Kelsey and I had met up at Bunch, and I don't know, like, what was going on with me that day or, like, what was happening. We talked for a really long time, and we hit it off. Like, for whatever reason, personality-wise, off the bat, I think I connected better with those three doves, or maybe just had a little bit more time to adjust to being in the game. Like, there were just certain personalities on the Snake Tribe that, you know, I didn't realize it at the time, but I had kind of had a slow start socially to the game compared to someone else. Like Iman had, I think, alliances like the first day, but it had taken me a few days. I just wasn't at the same pace as everybody else was, especially that first week. And it really slowed me down in terms of positioning for the, like, just being on that tribe. So I was talking to Kelsey and I kind of said it in the episode. I just told her way too much information in one sitting. I had told her I was like targeting Iman. Like I told her like everything. Like honestly, I told her just way too much information. And I left the conversation. And I was like, oh crap. That could easily get back to Iman and Nia. They could easily not trust me after that. So I got on the phone with Nia and I was like, Kelsey's not trustworthy. We need to vote out Kelsey. Like walking back from Bunch, I was like, I cannot let this get back to Iman because like we were getting closer. And I did not want it to like I knew I wanted to stick with the snakes at that point, which it was just a very messy episode for me. I think I'm not like I think I'm a strategic player, but I also really just all the information and
A gun for Kelsey no matter what. Kelsey, it's kind of hard for, again, because so much at this point of the game, the snakes, the phone communication. I think we were hitting 10 hours a week, 11 hours at this point. And so there's just a lot that get lost in translation. Kelsey's like strategic prowess just radiated off of her much more in comparison to Jude and Nugget. It was very clear from just looking at her, honestly, that she was a super fan. And then I think her major was something like
engineering, I think.
She's engineering, yeah.
Yeah, it's something like you could just tell. And so we kind of devised the plan of the 3-2-1 split throughout the week. Looking back, probably we should have done Jude or Dunker if we really wanted to get like a dub out, and then she would have flipped.
Yeah, I remember hearing from her that she was gonna vote for you in the first time and then
And
flip on
flip
the
on the
revote.
revote.
Yeah, we
And
were so silly because we did not, for whatever reason, we didn't consider that at all. And the other thing with Jude was that personality wise, he just seemed way less threatening. Still got along with him. Dunker, not really much of a factor. Like in hindsight, we definitely should have voted Dunker there. I think there might have been concerns that Dunker had the idol. We had a lot of stuff going on. I think overall, looking back on it, it was like a total oversight, but like, and just we totally overplayed the whole time, like bottom line. And I think it's hard to say because knowing what, we know with the outcome of the game and sort of with hindsight, I do think, what happened wasn't the worst possible outcome for my game personally.
I mean, yeah, it could have
And
been
honestly,
you.
I think for Iman and I, like, yeah, well, I won't say anymore, but I think, yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
tough to talk about this vote because it's such a transitional period. The
Yeah.
game really shifts here.
I mean, yeah, we see the tone of the game, right? The Doves go from this tribal where they choose not to vote anybody off to this tribal where they're being like
berated.
confronted and like yelled at, like flip, please, and I was texting Eli last night and he's like, this is like a top 3 tribal of Survivor UCLA period. Like it is a fantastic tribal. Like I was watching it last night and I was like, this is explosive. Like this is fantastic television. And honestly, like I don't know, Joseph, maybe you have a different perspective, but there are definitely moments where I'm like surprised they didn't flip. I think maybe because they're so like they are more reserved and a little dubby, that if you'd met them more at their level, they could have been convinced. But honestly, I think that like the information that you were bringing up about Kelsey being like she was willing to flip on you guys, like she told me all this stuff, like honestly they were valid arguments. And I think though, as Doves and as people who didn't know the game very well, they were just like, I'm not gonna flip, and it kind of was just pretty clear cut for them. But yeah, Joseph, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a discrepancy between like Iman, Annika, and Nia kind of like yelling at the Doves, like, this is what you need to do, this is what you, and they were just kind of like literally deer in the headlights. But I think that I'm more surprised that Annika and Nia didn't flip on Iman, especially Nia knowing that Iman had the idol. Annika was just trying to get Iman out, and now was handed him on a silver platter. But the two of you decided to draw rocks for him, which is insane to me. I remember sitting there watching that, like, y'all are gonna throw your life away in this game for this guy you hated 2 days ago. But I mean, obviously for hindsight, Jude and Dunker made the right decision to not flip because the
They
rocks
didn't
turned
go
out in
home.
favor,
Yeah.
but it very easily could have been one of them, and they could have been like, damn.
And I think you guys also had a really good argument of the fact that Matthew was going to be coming in. I do think that really added to why it made so much sense for you to stick together. Like, I think if that hadn't been a factor, it totally could have made sense to flip. But knowing that another Dove was just going to come in anyway, and you don't know what the relationships are like, I mean, we saw like Matthew wasn't super central, in their social network, right? We know that now, but you have no clue. He could be running the tribe and all of a sudden he's going to come in and you're going to be the next, all 3 of you are going to go. I think one of you like say that in the episode. So I think like, yeah, it definitely was strategically smart to stay strong. It's just like, sometimes you got to go to rocks, and sometimes you don't get the outcome that you want. But yeah, I'm curious like where your heads were in those moments, because like there's a moment, Iman, where like Kelsey says something about how like Annika threw your name out, and I literally see you sit there, you hear her, you like process for a second, and then you start cackling, and I'm like, there's no way he doesn't care. I was like, you definitely cared a little bit, and you were just like choosing to ignore that in the moment, like we'll deal with that later. Like I literally
Watching that, Simona, there are 2 moments where we were all watching it together on FaceTime. I paused, I go, damn, Kelsey gagged the fuck out of me. Sorry. And really hard to get me to stop talking. It like honestly, she clocked me twice. Again, which is why I was intimidated of her. It's all like this is all out of respect for her. She was the only dove that intimidated us. Quite
Mm.
frankly. I don't think there was any like that's why the heat was so strong, is because I think the snakes, it's like I don't think I guess we do have an elevated ego as a whole, but I think it's because we were all super fans and all really passionate. And we could tell in the Dove, they weren't as many super fans. So we were kind of like, and at this point, it came like a Stanford prison experiment. I swear to God, like we just were mentally so ingrained into it.
Mm-hmm.
Nia became a personal friend. So I was watching the episode now 2 years later going, bitch, why am I yelling so hard? I'm safe. I'm good. I don't
You
have
were
to.
talking the most.
I was
You
talking
too.
mouse. Yeah, it was so thing. But I think it just shows I really do care about my friends and I did not want them to go. Like the friendship that I felt, it felt personal to me because I knew how much they cared. And I kind of looked at O'Shea Dunker and Jude. I'm like, you guys wouldn't care as much in comparison as if they went. And so that I think is what really drove it. But no, props to Kelsey for gagging me not once, not twice, probably 3 times in that
You
second.
had her gag too. Kelsey's facial reactions during that tribal, she did not expect
No.
her
And
name to
like
be written down.
props to her for her keeping her cool also. Like being a freshman in that scenario, right? Like you two are both older than her also, and you're kind of coming out her. Like I would have been very intimidated. So props to her for like holding her shit, frankly. Because yeah, she clocked you even like through the heat. But yeah, Annika, I'm curious like what your perspective was through all of that.
Oh my gosh. Thinking back, it was just like kind of like Iman said, I feel like we all just really had our heads in the game and I don't know, so passionate about it. Like we really cared so much and it was starting to feel really real. And I don't know, also Iman and I both being transfer students, like it was my second quarter on campus. I feel like I was becoming really close friends with Nia. I was becoming friends with Iman at this point as well. And it was just like the three of us were so tight. And personally, I think we had a tighter bond than the other three. And
I think that's fair. Yeah.
yeah, knowing that one of us could be like, it felt like life or death. Like it's so dramatic looking back on it now. But I don't know. And I think the other part is watching that tribal. I was like, damn, we were in the wrong. Like we were the villains there. There is like I
Yeah.
don't know, but for whatever reason, maybe like our charisma makes us look a little bit better, hopefully.
I mean, I think it's so valid, you know, as someone who loves the game so much myself, like especially like you said, like being a transfer, like someone who had just gotten to UCLA, like for me, like I also played my second quarter. I was a freshman and like Survivor was like huge in my community building here. It still is so central to my existence on campus. And so I think back now and I'm like, if that had been taken away from me earlier, like it would have been really hard for me. I wouldn't be in the place where I am now at all. You know, I literally would have had a different college experience. I'm sure I still would have gotten involved with the club because I love Survivor so much, right? But like having a positive experience the first time around, I think is also a big part of that. And so I think like, you know, Iman, you were saying like the calls were at like 10 to 11 hours of communication a week. Like that's a lot. Like for people that you just met, like that's a lot of time that you're spending together. And so I think like that level of passion is definitely warranted. And like, I don't know, could you have gone about it differently? Like maybe, but would it have been as good television? No. um yeah, no, I definitely think it was really great to watch back. Yeah, do you guys have any other thoughts or do you want to head into like overall game perception right now?
I guess I also want to add just some context too. With Annika being a transfer student, there just felt like a limited time. Like you wanted to kind of make the most out of everything on campus. Also, in this period, I was having really bad roommate issues, and I was like, it was really bad. I actually became a commuter in the middle of the season or like in the beginning part. So I have a student apartment, but I'm going back and forth And so Survivor kind of became that escape. And like I felt very alone at campus at the time because a lot of my friends were going to UC Santa Barbara, all my best friends. I think 6 out of my 7 closest friends. So like really I like kind of threw myself really head on into the game. And I think just that passion, especially over just me and Annika, really wanting them to stay is kind of, I also am just loud. I ignore you. So
Yeah, no, that's so real. I'd love to talk about like what it's like watching it back now. You know, we've talked a little bit about that, and Joseph, like for you also, because being on the production end like feels very nostalgic for me. You know, we worked pretty closely together during that season especially, and like I remember that was really like the growth of our friendship, especially the food challenge. I remember like going to the store with you and like picking all that shit out and be like hee hee. But yeah, I'm curious what it's like watching it back later, and how like, yeah, I don't know, for me it's nostalgic, and but I'm curious how you guys are perceiving it.
I do want to say I was a transfer as well. And instead of playing, like it's always been my dream to work on the production side. So I was like, I can't ruin my first quarter by like playing the game. So I have to jump in late to the production side of things. So I still I felt that same passion that Annika and Iman had. I think that's why it kind of we resonated each other even across the camera. Um, but yeah, looking back, this season, yeah, it was you, me, and Evan kind of last minute scraping some stuff together, like every now and then. Even this challenge, I feel like came together
Ring toss
that
came out of
morning.
nowhere, like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, this club, I mean, yeah, it was my social life on campus. I so many good memories throwing together those challenges.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm so lucky to still be part of it, and I'm definitely like feeling like the end is near, and it's like really really strange. But yeah, Iman, Annika, what about you guys?
yeah, I mean, seeing myself from 2 years ago is like, I just feel like watching it now, like I just don't think I was being myself. Like I definitely think I was super worried about being perceived as kind of like the dumb gay one. I kind of just knew my effeminate, like at the time, was just gonna really like come out on camera. So I was really over. I was kind of like trying to come off more strategic. I was really scared that it wasn't gonna come through. So like a good example is like some of my confessionals. I feel like I'm over explaining or like kind of trying to sound smart and kind of sounding dumb at the same time. Um, but it's actually really cool seeing. I'm looking at more as like the growth of it. Like I honestly, when the promos came out, I didn't recognize myself. I was like jaw drop. I showed it to my friends, and they were like, "Who the fuck is she? Who is that?" So it's been cool, honestly. Waiting 2 years for this to come out, I just enjoy a lot of the nostalgia and the memories of meeting again. Like this changed my college experience for the rest of my 3 years there. 2022, 2 years there. Um, yeah, so it's a lot of fondness, a lot of like self reflection.
Yeah, Annika, what about you?
Yeah, honestly, I think for right now, it's definitely been sort of a pleasant surprise. I was not unhappy with my edit, although there are, of course, like obviously looking back, there's always like, oh man, why did I say that? And then looking back, I'm like, geez, like why did I have to show up hungover every Sunday? Could I have not have like tried a little bit harder because I was gonna be filmed the whole time? That would have been good, but it's okay. Um, 2020, you know. And so yeah, I mean, in terms of like gameplay and stuff so far, I think it's been fun. I think the editing has been really great, and I think Karina is doing an absolutely phenomenal job
Great
editing
job.
the season. Um, so yeah, I mean, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and then the last kind of question before we jump into player of the episode. Again, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but like I'm curious how you feel like being on Survivor has impacted you. Obviously relationships, right? You've all talked about like your friends like through this. And Iman, you talked a little bit about personal growth, but yeah, I'm curious about like if you feel like the show has impacted you otherwise. I mean, Joseph, there's like a pretty clear impact on your life career wise for sure.
Well, I can go first for this one. I think like in a little bit of a different way to Joseph, it's also sort of impacted career a little bit. It's the reason I started looking into internships in like media and entertainment. So that's how I got my current job right now in public relations. And I think, yeah, again, it just to echo what everyone else is saying, it's like it totally changed my experience at UCLA. I met some of my closest friends from the club who are on this Zoom call right now. And yeah, it was just, I would say overall a really great ex and positive experience for me.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah,
Joseph.
go for it.
Oh, allowing to Joseph first.
Oh,
Oh, was this question directed to me?
anyone, yeah.
Oh, I mean, Survivor was the only club on campus that I was really involved with, and I threw myself into it. The next two seasons I worked on, I got to kind of run the challenges, and that was really my forte of just kind of figuring out all these little Survivor dreams I've had of what I want to put on and getting to kind of throw some cool challenges together. And then it was a great experience for getting to work on Big Brother. They actually really valued that experience. They asked me about it all the time. Um, so very, very positive and great thing from Survivor.
That's awesome. And Iman, what about you?
For me, I just remember really being like, how do I say this? Like, I know I'm a very intelligent person. Like, I'm a smart guy, but it just is expressed in different ways. And I kind of felt that, again, like the edit is, again, I wasn't really meeting with that many people. It was a lot of the phone conversation. But I felt really good about my social game and my strategic ability and kind of displaying that, at least for me, like that kind of side of my intelligence that a lot of people don't really get to see.
Mm.
I played a lot of like BB Tumblr, Survivor Tumblr, like
Yes, orgs.
like I was an org person, and oh, one thing that's not shown is that I was lying to everyone and said that I was a Big Brother fan and not a Survivor fan. It was I was saying like, oh, like I don't know if people believed it, but I was saying like, oh, like my boyfriend at the time is a Survivor fan and we were watching it together, and I was kind of pushing myself to sort of lie and manipulate. But again, again for me, it was more just the community building, meeting like my friends that for the rest of my time at UCLA and after, really building that community, especially in a time where I needed that at UCLA, it really did save my experience and my view of UCLA as a whole. So I'm really grateful for the show and just have fun on camera, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting in I'm a soc major, sociology. I've been learning recently about like the idea of the looking glass self, which is where you like kind of build your perception of yourself based on how you think other people will perceive you. And I think the way that like that plays into this is really interesting. Also, like Iman, you were kind of talking about how like you wanted to appear more intelligent and like, but you thought you were gonna perceived a certain way and so you acted differently. Like I think that really applies here and is really interesting. But yeah, no, I mean, I think it's so interesting to like do this like little podcast, and like everyone that I talk to talks about like the ways that the club has really impacted them, and I think it's really awesome and makes me feel really lucky to be part of this. But yeah, so I just want to jump into one last little piece, talking about player of the episode. Overall, looking at this episode, like we lose Nia, someone who got 3 player of the episodes, I think, in the last episode. So she was really at like the social center of everything, I think. It was talked a little bit about how if the snakes had gone back to tribal, she would have had to backstab someone and that could have put her in a bad spot. But ultimately, she was really well connected. So her going out definitely radically changed like the course the game could have taken. And so I'm curious. I know I have my pick for player of the episode, but right now, so the standing, 3 for Iman in episode 1 and 1 for Lucas. Episode 2, we have 2 for Jude, 1 for Elena, 1 for Kelsey, and then episode 3, we have 3 for Nia, 1 for Lucas. So if anyone else is ready, you can go, or I can go first.
I can go first.
Yeah.
I think my player of the week was Annika. I think she socially connected with all of the doves and snaked the hell out of them this episode. And I think that was player of the week for me for sure.
Yeah, I certainly agree. Annika, you want to go next?
I think my player of the week was probably Kelsey.
Mm.
Because I don't even know. There's just so many like funny things that could have happened this episode. Like I look back on it and I think if I had pulled that rock, this would be a really hilariously sad episode to watch for myself.
Yeah.
Because no.
Yeah, could have been different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she sat there safe after 3 people voted for her, you know? And then the 2 boys still went to rocks for her after all that. I
Yeah.
wonder if they're watching it back and thinking, damn, we shouldn't have done that.
Oh my God, I totally forgot. We talked about that possibly like 6 times in the episode. Us, we were like, if we're gonna risk putting all our votes on Kelsey, those boys are gonna stay guarded. So the minute we saw she didn't vote Jude, we're like, fuck.
Yeah.
Just triggered that memory of us talking about that extensively.
Iman, what about you?
I know I have one vote, but it's Kelsey and Annika this episode. So you know, because my sister's here, I'll give it to Annika.
Oh.
I would say I definitely have similar contenders. But yeah, I don't know. Iman, you're also like in my mind because like I think, you know, the strength of them like not flipping on you also really shows. In that way where like again, similar to Kelsey, like you were safe, you had numbers who were more firmly backing you up, and I think they were like truly not willing to flip, while Uncle and Jude, like it looked like they considered it at least a little bit. You know, they had a little bit of a "what do you think we should do" kind of moment. So yeah, I don't know. I think I'll give my vote to you. So 2 Annika, 1 Kelsey, 1 Iman. I think honestly this was a really well-rounded episode and had like overall a lot of strategy, a lot of really interesting, compelling dynamics, and I'm really excited to see how they develop across the rest of the season. But yeah, unless anyone has anything else they'd like to add.
Last fun fact, at the end of that tribal, the mic did not pick this up because me and Jude were right next to each other. You can kind of see me like mumbling something. I'm whispering, I'm like, that was a fucking mistake. Like that was a fucking mistake. And I hear Jude next to me go, I know. And I was like, so that is the
Yeah,
last.
you see, it zooms in on Jude like this at the end of the episode, which is so dramatic. So I don't know. We didn't really see anything between Mia and Jude, but I'm curious, yeah, how his perspective will shift if he says, I know.
Deliberately brought up all the personal stuff Kelsey said to try and flip him specifically.
Yeah.
Stuck definitely at the end. It was very heavy, that room, emotional.
Well, I think for last remarks, wow, looking back on just the whole episode, I don't know. It's funny because like I feel like it was kind of edited in like a silly way, but like, man, it is not easy to look back on yourself totally spending all this time with someone, like calling them, talking to them on the phone, like all for the purpose of convincing them that they're safe when the outcome could have been the exact same if like you hadn't actually lied to their face the whole time. So I do feel a little bit, I don't know, definitely like a little bit great, but sorry. Yeah. Not sorry, but not easy to see yourself doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the game really takes over sometimes, and I think, you know, it's valid, and like to be able to look on that and have that reflection, I think is really mature also, and shows a lot of growth.
One
Yeah.
could say you were facing a moral dilemma.
One could say. Well, with that, that's a fantastic line to end on. Thank you guys so much for doing this and making the time. It was great to have you. Depending on how the season goes, you could be back in the future, who knows? But yeah, be sure to tune in every Sunday at 8 p.m. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Simona.
Thank you, Queen, for hosting.